Grounded is an arts, wellness, and media brand that is rooted in healing through creativity and culture. Create space and time with Grounded and be inspired to lead a well balanced life. Live your life authentically and freely with Grounded.
Hello, beautiful beings. You are now tuning in to the Grounded podcast, where we share your well being, art, and lifestyle stories to connect and inspire. I'm your host, Bianca Yuzon Henares, and today we're coming at you from EPX HQ in Taguig, Metro Manila. Our next guest is a household name in the Philippine electronic music scene. A multi genre musician, he draws his inspiration from a vast scope of soundscapes and styles, such as avant garde, ambient, lo fi, hip hop, and synth funk, to name a few. Apart from his notable commercial work in the film, TV, fashion, and broadcast industry, he is a professor at the De La Salle College of St. Benilde School of Design and Arts, the Grounded Founder's alma mater, and he runs his own electronic music school, which I happen to be a proud student of, called Cosmic Sonic Arts. Featured in numerous blogs and publications such as Pitchfork and Scout magazine, his unique yet trademark compositions have made waves internationally as well. In 2018, he represented the Philippines as one of the chosen few to participate in the Redbull Music Academy, a distinguished global music institution in Berlin. A founding member of the Buon Buon Beatmakers Collective, as well as one of the masterminds behind the eclectic online club Matryoshka, which exists in a Minecraft server. He is humble as he is brilliant. Everyone give it up for Jorge Wieneke, known as Similar Objects. Woo! Welcome, Jorge. Thank you so much for taking time to join us at Grounded. Between teaching, running a school, a virtual club, client work, and being a good boyfriend, and working on your next album, how do you maintain balance in your life and manage your time these days?
I think it takes a lot of like time management. I guess writing your thoughts down a lot, or actually just being in touch with your own thoughts. I think it helps to, be mindful every day. I also do a lot of like meditation in the morning and goal setting. Yeah.
Funny, I was about to ask, are there any like post waking, pre sleep rituals that are like non negotiable for you that you have to do every day?
Well, it used to be like non-negotiable, but sometimes when you wake up, it's like I think of work first now. So sometimes there are some days where I get to skip it, but it used to be like meditation before I sleep and meditation before I wake up.
Yes. Is there like a specific kind, or do you do different kinds?
I do a lot of different kinds. I started out with Buddhist meditation, with focuses on the breathing, and then I got into like the different kinds of creative meditation, dynamic meditation, or visualization, or even the guided one.
I love those guided ones
Yeah,
on YouTube. You can look for like
yeah.
whatever you're feeling. Cool. And for you, what is meditation?
I feel like it's a way for us to sort of strip away all the unnecessary things and trimming the fat. But it's also a way for you to sort of like reset your brain and start of the morning and know exactly what you want to focus on, know exactly what you need to focus on before you just get lost in the sauce. Yeah.
Nice, because it's so easy to get lost and like how, especially when you start the day with like checking your phone,
Yeah.
social media. Yeah, for me, I feel like it's a good cleanup. Like, you know how they say you brush your teeth every
Yeah.
day? This is kind of like hygiene for the.
For the mind, for the soul.
That's right, yeah. So, you pretty much eat, sleep, and breathe music. How did this come about? Like, did you know you wanted to be doing this for the rest of your life when you were like five, or did it kind of gradually?
It wasn't always like on the first, it wasn't always the first thing on my mind. Like my parents used to say when I was a kid, I had like a lot of fleeting hobbies and interests, but I guess I found music when I started like stealing my dad's iPod, or like borrowing his iPod,
Uh
because
huh.
he never really used his iPod. He had the first generation iPod.
Wow.
And even prior to that, my mom would take us out to buy cassettes every weekend, and
Wow.
we'd get, me and my brother would get to choose one cassette each. So I think it's that. It's like my relationship with music was always like, it was very casual. I was a casual listener. I wasn't as obsessed as I am now. But I guess it started when I started being in a band. Like I started being more into it, writing songs, writing poetry, and then playing instruments. My first instrument was the piano. Well, I was very influenced by chip tunes or video game music. So when I looked it up, it's like you need a certain cartridge to make it, which I sort of felt like I couldn't afford or was out of reach. So I would just borrow my mom's laptop when she's asleep and just try to install pirated software and like twiddle.
Would she be like, "What is this?" when she wakes up? Or
She
you?
was fine with it, yeah. When she wasn't allowing me to borrow the laptop, I was just using the family computer outside, so it stayed out there late nights, and set up like this plastic keyboard and like, just try to make music. So yeah, I think those were the starts. That was the start of me actually just making solo stuff.
And this is you like in high school.
High school, towards the end of high school, I would send my stuff to my friends, but they'll always be like, "What's this? It's weird." Yeah.
So what's your creation process like? Like I know some people start with a beat.
I'm a very big fan of like Bruce Lee growing up. Like I took up Jeet Kune Do before, but more than the martial art and how brilliant he is, I think I really like the philosopher aspect. How he always talks about no way as way, and that's what Jeet Kune Do was. And I feel like I apply it to the same philosophy to music. A lot of beat makers have templates, so like when they start, they want everything to be set up. For me, I feel like different starting points all the time. That's how I work. It's like I like opening up a blank set and letting the vibe just dictate what the song needs. So sometimes I'll start with a beat, sometimes I'll start with a rhythm, sometimes I'll start with a melody or found sounds or the texture. It's always different every time. And I love how even though it's always different every time, there's some sort of unifying factor that makes it still within the same context. Yeah. It's very like intuitive. Like it's always blank and then I sort of just let it, feel it out what the energy is. Like should I start with like making a synth? Should I start with making a drum pattern? Yeah. Or choosing the sounds.
So
Yeah.
you let it flow. And is this just for your creative work or for like client work as well? Like
Well, client work is very different. It has to be very calculated, so it's different. For me, it's refreshing that when I go back to my stuff, even the process is like very different from the other stuff that I do. Yeah.
cool. And where do you draw your inspiration from?
Lately, a big inspiration has been like pareidolia or like finding patterns in everyday things or in randomness or even taming chaos. Yeah. So that's a big factor for me now. It's like I try to find patterns in things. Yeah. In nature or in your daily life.
What do you mean, like physical patterns or like you know how numbers keep coming up? Like you always see 1111 or 3.
Both maybe. It's like it can be like sort of literal patterns or even like abstract patterns. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's where you draw your inspiration from now. What has changed in the local music industry from when you started out? And where do you see it heading? So that's like two questions.
I feel like there's a lot that has changed. There's definitely more openness towards electronic music now. I remember I used to play for shows that people would either find it weird or they would boo me off the stage. Or
What? Whereas if you did that now, it's like the norm.
normal na
It's,
ngayon. Like
yeah.
you go to a gig, people can gig with laptops, and it's accepted. And I think that's great. As well as I've been noticing and observing a lot of like really great artists emerging from their bedrooms, and parang there's this sonic bloom happening. Yeah.
Bedroom producers, right?
Bedroom producers and more people are, I guess, because of the information that they get online. It's like everyone can learn how to do something, everyone can get better at something.
What do you feel can be improved?
With the Philippines,
Yeah, like the local music industry.
whenever I travel, I realize that the Philippine talent, di tayo nagkukulang. It's like everyone is at par with whatever I see wherever I go. I feel like what it lacks is appreciation for your own stuff. It's like everyone's so busy looking towards the West. They're actually sleeping on what's really bubbling here. And it's funny because if whenever I go different places or whenever I listen to what people are doing in the West, a lot of it is actually inspired by Southeast Asian stuff, or like they try to emulate our sounds or what's natural to us actually. So it's kind of funny to see that. I feel like lang people need to sort of accept what's theirs or like own up to what's ours and make that their thing. Because sometimes being from here is what makes it special also.
It is, and it takes sometimes it takes a while to see that. Sometimes you have to
Yeah.
step out to realize. But
And I sort of feel like there's a sort of like it's the attention or like the focus is going to Southeast Asia now, especially with experimental music. A lot of people are really looking towards Southeast Asia for that. There's this growing like appreciation for it.
and that's great because we're here already, and we have all the we have all the samples and the local instruments we need in our
True.
backyard. So,
Yeah.
okay, I'm getting really inspired. At Grounded, we're an arts and wellness brand, and we firmly believe that creativity and the arts go hand in hand as healing tools. Is music a healing tool for you?
I always believe that music and sound can be healing. And I feel like a lot of it has been drowned out. The quality of music to be a healing thing is drowned out by the aspect that everyone thinks it's for entertainment. But this is something I also like teaching my students, like music and sound. They're not just like there for entertainment. They can be, but there's an aspect that actually affects you psychologically on a scientific level and maybe even on a metaphysical level. Yeah, like psychoacoustics, binaurals. Yeah.
But certain frequencies of sound like affect you. Like, what's the one for love? Because our last guest, Teresa Herrera, she gave us all like love tuners.
Was it
And
like a
then
432 thing?
something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah,
432
42.
hertz. Yeah, it's the frequency of love now.
And then when you hear it, you kind of relax and it calms your nervous system.
Yeah, there's a lot. I sometimes give my students this handout that says each frequency you can experiment with it, and I even teach them how to use a synth that can tune into those frequencies. And I said,
Wow.
experiment with it, put it in your music, don't tell anyone, and see what happens. So I used to do that a lot, but I felt like intention is stronger than deliberate frequencies. But some people would argue. I feel like when you're thinking about it and you're feeling the certain vibe and you're putting it, you're actually putting it already into the music just by intending to.
It comes through.
Yeah, I feel like it's too obvious when you deliberately put a frequency, but
Right.
I guess that's
Works for some
yeah, works for
people.
some people. So I used to do that, and some people would message me, "I use your music for studying," and then I don't tell them I put this sort of frequency that
For
allows you to
concentration.
yeah, for concentration. Nasa back lang. Yeah.
Nice. And when you're creating your music, what kind of, again, intentions do you have? Like, do you visualize people? How do you visualize them listening to your music? Do you want them to feel or think a certain way, like these days? Or is
Yeah.
it purely expressive?
Well, my previous work, it's very introspective. It's very like existential. A lot of people would say it's existential, or very meditative. And I sort of wanted to channel that with the beats. Now, when you listen to it, it gets you in this mood. Like I don't know exactly what the mood is because a lot of people say different things. But the most common is they say it's good for studying. They say it's good for meditation. They said it's chill.
Yes.
Some people say it's a little bit psychedelic too.
I feel that. Like when I listen to your stuff, it's kind of trancy, but not in your face trancy.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like comforting. Does that
I
make
feel like
sense?
at the end of the day, a lot of my music is sort of autobiographical. So whatever I'm going through and whatever is around me, you can hear it in the music. Like, especially with this new album that I'm doing called Infinite Regression, it's a little bit about information activism, politics, technology, or like sort of envisioning a world where there's no separation between like gender, race, and styles of music, and like it's just this like parang alternate world where everything's just like a mushed or smashed together, ganon.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
So coming soon.
Yeah. Dapat this year, but I might delay it a little bit because it's gonna come out in on a special medium, which I can talk about later. Yeah.
So there are many budding musicians out there who have day jobs unrelated to music.
Yeah.
Understandably, right? Like we all gotta eat.
True.
Especially if you're still trying to find your way. Do you have any advice on how to not lose sight of their dreams? Because it's so easy, like living in the metro, everything's so fast paced, and so many responsibilities and demands that sometimes music gets pushed to
That's
the
true.
sidelines. Yeah.
This is advice I should tell myself as well.
Okay.
So I think it's very easy, like you said, to lose yourself and lose sight of what you're passionate about, especially with the day-to-day grind and like how everything sometimes is so automatic and everything becomes like a habit na and mechanical. For me, I try to set time talaga. It's like a relationship. It's like you have to keep on checking in on it. It's like, hey, musical self, are you still alive? Hey, musical self. It's like sometimes it's like making small ideas, practicing the keyboard, writing down songs. It can also be like accepting small DJ jobs because even like playing music, digging for music, that's still part of it. And I feel like that's something that you have to continuously do. I've sort of had those times where I feel like I'm losing it. I'm losing that side of myself, but it's a constant struggle of trying to find like maybe an hour, 2 hours a day just to do musical practice or musical meditation. Ganon.
Is it like a muscle you have to constantly work out, or
I feel like it is because it's if you stop doing it for a while, when you go back to it, it's like you're rusty and you can feel it. It's kind of like it's kind of like a muscle. It's like how even your momentum when you create, if you do it every day, sobrang automatic. It's like you're just flowing. and even losing that sort of flow state or learning how to get into that flow state, it becomes rusty if you don't do it a lot.
I feel that even when I don't sing for, let's say, 2 weeks, and then
Yeah.
I have a gig or something, and I'm just like, oh man, it takes a
Yeah.
while to
Diba?
get back in there. And you also have advice for like starting tracks and not finishing them, because it can be so easy. Sometimes it's really easy to start them, and then sometimes it's not the right time, but also because we tend to get lazy or give up on it. Like, what steps did you take growing up to be so disciplined with your craft?
A lot of my friends would say I'm a workaholic and I'm always finding things to do. I think it's also like a psychological thing. When I'm not doing anything, I feel like I'm a waste of space. So I always tend to like look for things to
Is
do.
that a Libra thing?
I'm not sure. It might be.
Okay.
But in terms of finishing tracks, it's like for me, like, so the question is, how do I finish?
Like, how do you instill that discipline? Or, like, what advice can you give to people who always start them and never
Well, I
finish?
feel like I used to have this thing where I'm not gonna sit down on the workstation if I don't intend to finish anything, and that used to be my mentality. So it's like I'm not gonna start a track if I'm not gonna finish it the same session. But my perspective on that has evolved because of how I feel like there's a plus side to leaving your project, resting a bit, and coming back with a more grounded approach or grounded perspective towards it. Dati kasi parang, shit, I have to finish this today. It sort of becomes half-assed sometimes.
Okay.
But I feel like, the discipline of wanting to finish or even writing it down so you don't forget. Revisiting like your past projects, stuff like that. Yeah. But I really think that it's important to take notes. Like I have a journal every day. I have a planner. So you can always go back to the things that you forget.
Oh, you do? And do you bring it around, or is it at your
You bring it
workstation?
around everywhere, yeah.
It's a written, like, legit ball pen,
Yeah,
pencil.
I feel like it's different when you're writing things down. It's like
It
yeah,
is.
and I also like writing random ideas. Like sometimes you're just walking and then think about something or you hear something. So yun.
Do you have any advice for musicians in general, especially the ones growing up here, because you know the terrain and you know what it's like?
The other day they asked me this question also. It's like, what's my advice? Because a lot of the people that I teach ask me, how do you find yourself? How do you find your self worth and stuff like that? And I tell them try to like figure out who you are first. And I know that's a big thing to do and ask someone to do, but I feel like if you align yourself, I mean, if you look inside and you meditate, you sort of pay attention to what your body, what your brain, and what your soul is telling you. It's easy to find out what you want to say with your music as well. And I feel like it's also good to know what you're passionate and what you're excited about, and that can sort of be your internal compass for everything. There's a lot of things in life that people told me not to do, but those are
Okay.
also the things that excite me in life, and also have always brought me to better places. So I think learning how to listen to yourself, and it also for me it relates a lot to meditation, because that's when you start to know what this sort of substance is making you feel, what this person is making you feel, and just being sensitive to energy, being sensitive to vibes.
Oh my gosh, I have a question about that later. But for now, so it's about knowing yourself first and being able to, like, listen to what's going on inside. And then from there, you'll be in a better space to create, because you're not just, I don't know, trying to emulate a
Yeah.
certain sound or artist. When an album or a track of yours is well received or praised, do you ever get that fear of not being able to meet those standards for the next one, or like having people not appreciate it as much? It's called second album or sequel syndrome. And how do you fight through that
I
fear?
think I've gone through that. There was a time where I was making future R&B and future beats, and I guess a lot of people would say it's the SoundCloud era where everything was about that sound that SoundCloud was creating. Um, it was a nice time, but
Golden age of
yeah, it
SoundCloud.
was the golden age of SoundCloud where it wasn't about reposts. There was no reposting button yet, and people wouldn't pay for reposts. Then it got to the point where people got so used to that sound of mine that anything I made after, they were saying it's either too weird, too experimental. So I felt like I got pigeonholed because of a trend. And I was in this sort of headspace where I was worried because like a lot of people from my mailing list have been asking to be removed. But I realized it's strange because this is the time where I feel like I'm myself the most. And even in terms of musicality and like the sound, the sonic palette, I feel like this is me. When I make it, I feel like this is what I hear in my head. It's the closest to what I hear in my head without even like, like referencing things. So it's weird because the more I know myself, the more a lot of these people have been like disappearing from engagement or like from my mailing list. And I realized it's sort of like the music is just like sorting itself out. It's weeding out who's there for the long run and who's there for the time. Parang fair weather fans, I guess.
Fair weather fans,
Yeah.
yeah, fair weather friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's okay that some artists create for their fans. But I also think it's okay for you to, your brand is just you being you. And I feel like that's the most effective for me because it's like, I don't have to explain myself. And I realize this wherever I go. It's like when I play in Vietnam, you meet people as weird as me and they're the ones that like my music. Or sometimes they even dress like me and they're into the same things. Or even like my fans here. I have one fan that messaged me when I was in Japan saying that he feels like my songs give him superpowers.
Oh,
Like he says, like he remembers a
that's so
song.
nice.
There's one time though where he got hit by was gonna get hit by a bus.
Okay.
Tapos sabi niya, he remembered my song, and then he said he was able to slow time para Max Payne daw. And I was like, okay.
Whatever you take away from it.
But a lot of them, I realized a lot of my the people that listen to my music are into that stuff. So it's interesting na parang may pattern din sa
And
kanila.
you all found each other through your sound.
Yeah.
You said so many beautiful things. I just want to recap, like how your music was weeding out the people who were just there for a good time, and then the ones who were really like there for the long run. I feel like also you're right. You shouldn't have to be apologetic for who you are because even if you start out with a certain sound, we're people. We grow, we evolve, we change,
Yeah.
and sometimes like our craft, our music evolves with us. So
True. Yeah.
yeah, never know. I might be a rapper, but I'm not. No, just kidding. So, can you tell us about your experience with Red Bull Music Academy last year?
Oh my
Were there
God.
any particular insights that stood out to you being around all those amazing musicians from all around the world in such a concentrated environment? Because before you started, I remember you were like, "Oh, they took our phones and then they
Yeah.
gave us phones and
Yeah.
no contact with the outside world," and I was just like, "What? That sounds so intense."
Yeah. It was really fun. Like, and it's funny that you mentioned it because it's actually like the anniversary of RBMA.
No
Like
way.
around this time last year, I was in Berlin. The experience is like, for lack of a better term, it was really a musical utopia.
Wow.
They tell you for the next few days, everything is about you. And there's people coming in really interested with your work. There's people coming in like they know your work, or there's even like people from press. They have like these like wheels that have like information about you. So let's say they'll go up to you and be like, oh, they'll spin it around and look for the Manila guy, and there's my face, and it's like he's into Twin Peaks, he's into David.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they know what to talk about already.
Wow.
But more than that, it was like it really felt like a space carved in time for you to really actualize who you are, and people encouraging you to do your thing. It's like you're surrounded by everyone, and everyone's just trying to support you and make you feel like you matter, your music matters. But it didn't feel cheesy at all. It just felt spiritual for me. It felt like everyone there was a reflection of me, different versions of myself. I learned so much just from being there, and it's like there's highs and lows. Yeah, like I told you, they would sort of like, you're not allowed to use your phones, but they give you like several phones to sort of like talk with the other participants through WhatsApp groups. But not a lot of people were using the issued phones. What else? There's a lot of studio time. There's a lot of lectures from people that we really looked up to, people that we wrote in the application for.
And they brought them over.
So it's like they tailored the lectures for the participants, and the participants always change up every time. So it's like we really felt like shit. They really thought about us in everything, and it's like even the food. It's like there was like a vegan buffet. Every day was like buffet, vegan buffet, vegetarian, normal food also.
Curated
Yeah,
for you
yeah.
guys. And I remember you mentioned that like you had to write about what your dream gig was, and
Yeah.
they made it happen
Yeah.
to their
Yeah.
capacity, and you played in
Yeah,
a
they booked me in, what's it called? It looked like a dungeon, and then it was one of my favorite like RBMA gig series. It was like a digging in the carts, which is like a video game series. It's all about video game music. So they got me, and then they made me play alongside one of my like really like musical heroes, like Code 9. So I played after him. And I was like really freaking out. They even put me beside him during the dinner. So I was like,
Were you
"Wow." I was
nervous?
super nervous. I couldn't talk to him. I think I even made some cringy jokes. Yeah. But it was fun. It was fun. Like, it was fun playing alongside people that had similar tastes in music. Like, everyone that I played with that night I felt like I resonated with, and they were all like, we were all sort of like similar,
Similar. That's so nice. And I was just imagining myself beside like Florence
Oh my
Welsh and like how I would probably be like, so.
It
But
was
yeah.
like basically I got to like do a lot of like I got to attend dream lectures and I got to play dream gigs and being around such a diverse crowd, such a diverse lineup of people, even lecturers and mentors. They're always like looking out for you, taking care of you, giving you insights, giving you knowledge that you wouldn't normally get because these are people that have been in the industry, people that have been like pioneers of certain sounds, and then like other people I look up to were also participants. So I was like, oh my god, it's like I listened to this guy on SoundCloud, and now he's my classmate.
Unreal. Thank you for representing our country so
Yeah.
well. I'm sure you the only one from the
Prior
Philippines.
to me, there was one, like a friend of mine, John
Okay.
Pope. Yeah.
Okay.
But it took me 6 years to like get in. It's like I've been applying every year, and I think they really, what I realized, they really look after the application. Some people think that after you apply and you don't get in, wala lang. I felt like it matters to them how many times, and they really observe. I met some people that were actually the ones that were choosing, and they were saying, oh, they explained the process, how a lot of people listen to your music, and then it's like everyone's reading your application forms. And the application forms aren't normal, actually. It's like the questions are pretty weird. It's like, when was the last time you cried? If you're fighting with Godzilla, what would you do? Something like that. It's really like specifically designed to figure out, I don't know who to get.
And you were so chaga because you did it for several years.
And it's like it's maybe a 15 to 20 page application form. For me, it was fun. There was a time, I think the magic was when I stopped trying to impress them with the application form.
You were just yourself.
Yeah. There was one year where I was just shotgunning. Actually, the one that I got in, the application form that got me in, I shotgunned it. I downloaded the application form on the same day and answered it in Starbucks and then went to I think FedEx or LBC and just like chucked it in. I was like, bahala na. I feel like for me, the application form itself was existential. It's like it was a way for me to reassess where are you in life as a musician. And it wasn't more, bonus na lang if you get in.
Wow, and you got in. So congrats again. Okay, so we're gonna veer away from music for a wee bit because I just want to talk about this story that you told me before of how you used to give out vegetables to your classmates as Christmas presents.
Friendship day gifts, yeah.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cute. And they made fun of you, right?
Yeah. No, some of them did. Some of them were like, they found it funny, but they were okay lang.
Like, thanks for that.
Yeah.
What did you
They
give?
found it weird. Repolyo.
Thanks for the repolyo, man. Like,
Sometimes eggplant, sometimes
Okay.
carrots, na may poetry, like I put a poem connected to the vegetable.
that's so unique. But I guess
It's
it goes
cheap,
to
eh?
show that you also like vegetables at a young age. So from vegetarian to vegan or like pescatarian and having all these dietary restrictions and
Yeah.
lifestyle options these days, how are you able to choose and find what works best for you and your body?
Well, there was a time in college, or maybe like close to the end of college, where I was experimenting with how substances make us feel. And I tried doing like all red meat, I tried all meat, and then I eventually switched to like vegetarian, and then I switched to vegan, then I switched to raw vegan, then I tried fruitarian. Yeah.
Fruitarian.
I felt like people sort of tend to not realize that what they're putting into their body contains information too, whether they think it's like nutrients or whether they think it's cosmic downloads or like energy. And I felt like experimenting with those different diets really made it clear to me that you are what you eat, and that saying goes really deep. So right now, I'm doing a pescatarian diet just because I've had an iron deficiency from the lack of iron, and that was the worst. I haven't gotten sick in years, but that was the worst. When I got sick, my doctor was saying like, "You need iron. Maybe you can eat more fish." And it was also, I guess, easier here in Manila because when you eat in other people's houses or whenever I go to my girlfriend's house, it's so hard na parang I bring my own food or I have to cook my own food or they have to prepare.
But now I'm sure they have.
Yeah,
They're
now
like,
it's
"Where is
everyone has
kami?"
fish naman eh, yeah. So for me, it was like a lot of experimentation, and I feel like right now I can strive for a better diet, but because of I guess practicality also and being economical, I've decided to settle within like a pescatarian diet. But whenever I can choose, I just always choose vegetables. Yeah.
It's kind of challenging here to be vegetarian or vegan because of the options, and we're like a
Yeah.
meat-loving country.
Yes, definitely.
Like I personally don't eat pork. It's just a personal preference, and it's hard because sometimes that's all they serve. Or like
Yeah.
if I go to Cebu,
Yeah.
I don't want to be rude, so I just like
Lechon.
yeah. And with being pescatarians, you have more room to move around, and you love sushi.
Yeah,
Who
definitely. So
doesn't?
when I found out, oh, I could eat fish, it's a nice excuse to eat sushi again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, okay, we're also both empaths, I guess you could say. And as artists, we're very sensitive to energies around us. Like, I know for a fact that I'm super sensitive. Like, if I
Yeah.
go to the mall and it's overly crowded, sometimes I pick up all kinds of things. But sometimes we're too sensitive. Could you give any advice or any tools you might use to protect yourself or manage external forces, especially negative energy?
Before, whenever I would feel like attacked or being invaded by energies or even spirits, I sort of like, try to imagine this sort of like egg, like a sort of egg force field, and like I try to sort of just visualize like
Like
bursts
white
of
light?
energy, white light, bursts of energy trying to like shoo them away, or like even parang what do you call this? In a video game, it's like you're doing a energy blast, parang
Uh,
ganon. I would do that, and it would give me a lot of like comfort and like feelings of security. It would help, but for people or psychic vampires or people who are unintentionally being psychic vampires, I feel like it's important for you to acknowledge the types of energies that people bring into your life and know who to cut off, who's good for you, who's not. Ganon. And being a sensitive person, it's also important for you to be able to communicate your feelings well. And I mean, I guess a lesson is like I'm a Libra, sometimes non-confrontational. It's learning how to like know what to work on as a person, as a human being, and as a spiritual being, and those things. I guess there's a reason why we're sensitive. Yeah.
so tell us about your Minecraft club, Matryoshka.
Okay.
Yeah, tell us about it.
So I was playing Minecraft recently with a bunch of friends. At first using a very janky server, and I think I got into it. I wasn't unexpectedly. I got back into Minecraft. The last time I played it was 2009, and then my concept of it was like just an adult Lego. And then fast forward to now, maybe like 7 months or 8 months before the launch of the club, I started playing with a bunch of friends. And then we decided this is so slow. Why don't we just get a server? So we decided to like spend on a server, and then we had like a small community of people playing with us. Ironically, well, we didn't plan it. It was just all musicians, and all artists. We have illustrators in the game. We have um, fashion designers and stuff. And then eventually one day, we have a town, parang virtual village. And then while everyone was asleep, I had this like weird idea to make a club. So I stayed up all night building a club in survival mode, meaning I
You
had
could
to like
die.
gather all the stuff. I have to eat. I can die. You have to battle monsters. But against those odds, I was able to build like a 3-floor club that's inspired by Berghain because I wasn't able.
I've seen it. I mean, no, I've seen your club, like online. I've seen photos, and it's on like a tree canopy kind of situation.
Tapos may parang mukha siyang dungeon, mukha siyang library,
Castle.
yeah. So that was the first iteration of Club Matryoshka. And when people woke up, I was like, guys, I built a club. There's a DJ booth, there's a sound system. And then I was telling them, I'm going to hold a night here this weekend. And then everyone was just laughing because it was like a parang inside joke lang. But I made a Facebook event. And then I started inviting people. I made the server open, but you have to like answer an application form to get in.
Can you tell us about that? Because I read on an article on Vice, mind you, that you also don't ask regular questions. Like you ask people to put a haiku and things like that.
That's really a way for me to weed out people who were too cool to get silly. It's like
Aw.
I feel like there's some people that love music, but they're very like, I'm too cool for this. But I wanted the energy of the club to be fun. Like it's okay to make fun of yourself, ganon. So the questions are like, why would you want to get into the club? But you have to answer in Pig Latin. And then the second one is like, can you write us a haiku? And the other one is like, what's your superpower? And there's 3 questions lang, and then people have such a hard time answering it. Some people are just like being philosophical about it. What's your can you type what's this? There's someone na parang can you type why you wanna be in the club in Pig Latin, and they'll be like in Pig Latin. Yun lang yung sagot. Or like what's your superpower? I'm a virgin. Mga ganon.
Oh, whoa, okay.
The recent club iteration we did was for the rainforest. I sort of switched up the answers a bit, like the questions a bit. I asked like, how are you helping the planet, and if so, please explain. Because I wanted to know. It's like, because since that was their theme, saving the Amazon rainforest,
Amazon
I wanted to
rainforest.
be more lenient about people who are actually doing their part. So it was nice to see how some of these people, actually most of the people that applied, are actually like not using plastic anymore, or they like reuse their Tupperwares or whatever. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm gonna quote the Vice article for a bit. Club Matryoshka is unlike any other bar. It has no cover charge, overpriced cocktails, or any annoying strobe lights. Most of all, it can't be found on any street in the world, but in a private Minecraft server created by musicians in Manila looking for an alternative space to share their work. Do you see this as the future, like virtual hangouts? Is it already
I think
happening?
it's already
Because
happening.
of traffic, no
Yeah.
one wants to go out.
I also feel like my main inspiration for Club Matryoshka was creating a place where you can set your own tone for things. And I think that's always been what I've been doing with One One. But I felt like after years of doing events, it started to like sit in a very parang stagnant zone. No one really goes to shows anymore. Everyone's like, I mean, everyone's busy doing their own thing, or the types of shows that get filled up are different. So I felt like creating a new platform, a place where I can set a new context for our content. And I felt like there was room for that. There was a void to be filled. And yeah, that's how it was born. It was like a place where you can do whatever you want, create your own rules, you can create your own worlds,
Whenever.
whenever, and then anyone can watch. Yeah.
But how old do you have to be? What are the age restrictions?
Well, our youngest viewer is 12.
Oh, okay. You don't
Yeah.
have to be 18.
You don't have to be 18 naman, but
It's not
it's
really
like, yeah.
drinking.
There's no real drinking, but there's getting intoxicated in the game.
Okay.
Like the recent iteration, we had like pads. Like if you want to get drunk, step on this, and then you step on this, the screen starts to like warp, and yeah, people were just like mixing. They were mixing the what do you call it, the effects. But yeah, I think it's very immersive. It also removes the problem of distance. I can book someone from across the world. I can book anyone from, I mean, Filipino artists from the province. Like the recent show, I had people from Iloilo.
Wow, that's amazing.
The recent show, we had 800 listeners.
Guys,
We were able to raise,
earn
yeah, we were
and,
able to raise funds,
raise
yeah,
funds
and have fun in the process. We had mini games like each time you kill a Kermit the Frog, like a donation is made on your behalf. And in the Druid stage, we had like artists like Lust Base, Crown, and a lot of other internet artists play. So it was a little bit chiller and more mellow. Yeah.
Is that why it was called Druidism?
Yeah, Druidism, because it's more of like forest, like forest mages. So we really wanted to get the spirit of like helping the environment with that. I also wanted to test if we can use it as a platform for fundraising for causes or gigs for a cause,
And it
raves for a
worked.
cause. It worked.
That's so
Yeah,
great.
small victory, but yeah, I feel like we could do more.
Congrats, and you heard about it here first. Okay, so you've been pretty active through the years on different social media platforms. It comes with the territory of constantly releasing new material. How has your attitude towards social media changed, if at all? And can you give us some tips on how to maintain a healthy relationship with social media?
I used to really be confused about social media. I had a problem with people knowing everything about you. It's like sometimes I'd run to the mall and be like, someone would be like, "Oh, you're like this, or you came from this, or you're doing this now," and I'd be like, "It's weird. I don't know this person, but they know so much about me." But I realize now it's not about like just disappearing from it. It can be a tool. It's also something that you can use wisely or you can abuse. So I think it's better to know what social media can do for you, to know how helpful it can be, but also to know the dangers of it, or to be careful, how to be a smart user
And like
about it.
set your own
Yeah.
parameters.
Yeah. For me now, it's like I use it mostly to promote stuff. I use it sometimes to communicate ideas, or like even Twitter. It's like for Twitter, I like talking about opinions or like my frustrations. I like to rant a lot, but I also want to sort of like talk about releases there, or get people to know that, oh, I'm still alive. I'm working on this. In terms of Facebook, it's very people use it here a lot to connect. So my clients hit me up there.
Yeah, and even in college, I remember even if you wanted to delete your Facebook, you couldn't because all
Yeah.
your groups were there.
Me also, mas lalo na now as a teacher, I'm the one being asked to create groups. And students don't like checking emails for some reason. So they're like, send me na lang the handouts on Facebook Messenger. Part of me feels like it's so weird because it's like, even if you want to disconnect, I love just being disconnected. You can't sometimes. It's like they're always constantly like messaging you. It gets overwhelming. Eh. So I have some days where I just do detox. It's like deactivate. I look at it as seasons. Maybe this is the time that I'll be on because I'm promoting an event. But there are times that I just want to be alone and like soak up my
In
own.
your cave
Yeah,
and
and
just
because sometimes you don't hear your own voice anymore. So many voices chatting with you or like interacting with you online. Na parang, which one is my voice? That's where meditation comes into play, or even occasional detoxes or retreats.
it's a really nice way of putting it. Because like it can be overwhelming every day to have like sometimes I'm like, why am I craving pizza? Because like maybe someone talked about this
Yeah,
specific pizza and I'm just like, wow, it really works. You said sometimes people would recognize you in the mall before
yeah.
and you'd be weirded out, right? You recently tweeted about an experience in Japan where you ran into this store owner who was listening to your music and he was shocked to realize that you were similar objects. And in a recent trip
That
to
was funny.
Denmark, I met someone like randomly who also mentioned how he was a huge fan of your work. He even thought you were a band. And he was like, you know the whole band? And I was like, no, it's one guy.
That's
Like he
funny.
does all those things. So you seem to have a following in so many nooks and crannies of the world. How do you see yourself evolving further? Like, is there anything else you want to accomplish? Because right now they know you
Yeah.
for, of course,
I
yeah.
feel like just solidifying it even further. Like there's a lot of like mixed ideas about what similar objects or who he is. I feel like it's more about like just polishing the whatever thing is
And who
there.
is he?
Yeah, mga
Yeah.
ganon.
No, I mean, who is? That's a
Who is
question.
similar
Like,
objects?
yeah.
Sometimes I feel like it's this thing that I'm channeling. So some like people ask me, it's like I'm sometimes afraid to answer this question because like depending on who's asking, it's like di nila maintindihan or they'll say it's like some marketing thing. But I really feel like it's something that you channel. Like even talking about my other musical projects, I feel like they're all split personalities. If I make something, I know if it's similar objects. I know if it's like Presentius. I know if it's Novel. Yeah.
And they all live
Yeah, para
inside
silang
you.
split personalities ko, yeah.
That's so cool. And also, how do you react when like that experience with the store owner? Were you
That
like
one I was like,
really?
I felt like I was being punked. I was like, is my girlfriend punking me? Because she's the one who asked me to buy the camera.
Oh, so you
Yeah.
guys didn't know?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Wow.
She didn't even know about that place. I asked around. And then they were telling me, that's a nice place. I checked on Instagram muna. The camera she wanted was there kasi. Actually, when I went into the store,
Gabby set it up pala. Just
kala ko
kidding.
ganon. Because I was calling her. I was like, the guy knows me pala. And so I went into the store. Una, medyo masungit yung guy. He was talking to a bunch of Japanese schoolgirls. And they were all giggling, having fun, talking about cameras. And I put myself on the side and it's like, how do I ask? I didn't. I was worried at first. Does he know how to speak English? But later on, nung umalis na yung mga tao, so he went back to fixing his stuff. He was playing music. And then he was fixing cameras. And they asked him, like, do you have this model? The one that Gabby was looking for. But I also noticed the music already, right? And then, yeah, I was asking, he was talking about this model, his recommendations, and this special camera that's not even out on the market yet, daw, na 3D, ganon. And then he asked, are you from the Philippines? And I was like, yeah. So for a brief moment, he was talking about food, adobo, how there's this girl daw in the bar there that cooks adobo for them. And then later on, he was like asking about, oh, do you know similar objects? And it's like the second thing he mentioned. So I thought, is this a joke?
Yeah. What are the odds?
And then he was like, I was like, that's me. And then he made this like confused face, like, huh? And then I said, it's me. And he was like, parang, huh? So I showed him my Instagram, and he was like, then he showed me his laptop. It was like my SoundCloud, and then
Wow.
he was like, he started googling just to prove to himself na parang, is this him? And then he showed me the video that my girlfriend took of us in Finland. It's like, is that you playing in the forest? I was like, look at it.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So he was laughing and he was embarrassed, and he was like, he gave me a discount. Lang, I'll give you a
Nice.
discount. I'll give you a discount on anything you want, and I'll even sell you this camera that's not even out on the market yet. And it was nice. It was random, and it was interesting to know that
Yeah.
there's people there that
There's
listen pala.
Japan
Yeah,
and Denmark and
yeah.
all over. That's so cool. We saw the tweet while we
Mm.
were traveling and we were like, whoa, trippy.
Natawa ako eh. Natawa talaga ako.
And last but not the least, favorite question, how do you stay grounded?
I think it's a lot of self-assessment and meditation talaga. Like, it really keeps me sane. There's some days na I feel like hindi ko na kaya, or like I don't want to live, or just want to erase myself. But whenever I meditate and get back to that sort of like grounded zone or like in my level, I realize I just laugh at myself. Why was I thinking that? I also do this thing that every year, maybe in the start of the year, New Year, and during my birthday, it's like reassessing myself. I do this thing where I write down the elements: fire, air, water, and I ask myself what things or what activities or goals have I accomplished that relate to those elements. I feel
Wow.
like it's a
It's
nice
like
way to sort of
Avatar.
accomplish everything you want to do,
Yeah.
because we have sides of ourselves that are fire related, other sides of ourselves that are earth related, air, yun,
Could you
water.
give like a brief example lang? Like, for
So
example,
mga
for water.
for water, it's a lot of the emotional stuff, like things that cater to your emotional needs. Yeah,
Relationships?
relationships with your friends, relationships with your with your significant other. Earth naman is sort of like exercise, ganon. Water and air is anything intellectual, or maybe reading books, learning something new, teaching someone, being a mentor to someone. So I do this every year, and it always makes me feel okay when I start reassessing, crossing things out. Usually in the start of the year, nakakatakot siya, ang dami. But at the end of the year, it's like, oh shit, at least I'm still
I'm
doing,
getting things
yeah,
done.
yeah.
And so fire would be
Yeah,
passion.
passion related stuff. Or like even putting your foot down in certain situations, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just kidding. That was the second to the last question because I
Yeah.
just remembered I wanted to ask you about your album
Okay.
coming up. You mentioned there was something different about it in terms of the way you were gonna
Yeah.
put it out there. Could
So
you
basically,
expand?
I've been working on this album for 3 years. It's called Infinite Regression, and sonically, I feel like it envisions a world where there's no separation of like anything, like for conspiracy theorists, they would say New World Order type stuff. But for me, I just imagine like a world where everything is smushed, everything is one. You can hear elements of opera, you can hear Oriental elements, you can hear techno, gabber, industrial, hard dance. There's R&B. Yeah, there's it's everything I love into rolled into like one thing. And the medium of release would be a film. There's two films coming out and the video game. So, yeah, yeah. I started developing the video game like 3 years ago, and now I ask a team to help me out because a lot of the stuff that I've been doing is like very tedious, and I realized I need a team to polish up the codes because I showed it to some people. They were like, "Ang kalat ng codes mo." But I feel like I know I'm really happy with how it's panning out because it's a different way to sort of communicate the idea. I mean, everyone's releasing just like Spotify links or like even random download links, and I feel like immersing them in the headspace that I was in during the album and helping them sort of like unravel the mysteries themselves would be interesting. And the game is pretty like abstract and really trippy. So even if you're not into like deep shit, just playing the game and
It'll be
will yeah.
fun.
I
Dude,
don't want
that
to spoil it so
sounds.
much, but yeah, there's a lot going on there.
That
Yeah,
sounds so
yeah,
exciting. So you can have your own video game and
yeah.
all these things. And we wish you the very best. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you
here
for inviting
today
me.
and for all your amazing insights. And we look forward to all the future music. And I'll see you in class tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank
See
you.
you.